Hello class, today I'm going to teach you how to read a Supreme Court case efficiently, effectively, and in such a manner that you would not be inundated with whatever it is written in the case. So for today's session, I'm going to teach you using the case of Gashem Shukat Baksh versus Court of Appeals and Marilu T. Gonzalez. So you could see there. It's a 1993 case. Now, the first thing that you have to do when you have a case like this is to take a look at the parties. Okay? You see here, Gashem Shukat Baksh, he is the petitioner. So essentially, he was the one who filed an appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay? The next is you see the respondents, the Court of Appeals and Marilu T. Gonzalez. So there is a private respondent, call it that is a private party. That's an individual or probably a corporation. You also have a public respondent, which is the Court of Appeals. So, put differently, si Gashem Shukat Baksh, natalo siya sa Court of Appeals. Therefore, he is filing an appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay. So you know the parties. So, personally, as a professional, as a lawyer, and when I was still a law student, when I read the case, so I see the parties. The next thing that I do, I spoil myself. And I spoiler. What do you mean I spoil myself? You know the movies, right? You spoiler alert. Okay. So for ease of understanding, you go straight to the end. Okay. You go to the decision of the court. Dito yan. Kita niyo lagi. Every Supreme Court case has this. Wherefore. Alright? In all caps, most probably, the petition is denied or granted. So here, the instant petition is denied. So ano ibig sabihin nun? That means the petitioner na-deny yung petition niya. Ano ibig sabihin ng na-deny petition? Natalo siya. Ganon yun. So if the petition is granted, the petitioner wins. So once you know that, kumbaga alam mo na how the Supreme Court would eventually rule, then the other parts, you figure it out on your own. So, kumbaga alam mo lang yung pupuntahan ng decision ng Supreme Court. Okay, so we know the parties, we know the decision. Now, we take a look at the facts. I've told you that a Supreme Court case is written chronologically. There are stuff that happened in real life, okay? And then, once those facts, those events, those actions, probably one person felt the need to file a case at the trial court. Okay? After that, after the facts, they would file a case. The complaint was docketed. Okay? So, ganun lang muna. So, step by step tayo. So, you take a look at the facts. So, when you have a Supreme Court case, at your level, of course, it's overwhelming kasi it's a different way, it's a different language. The sentences are kilometric, and that's fine. Don't feel bad. Ganyan din ako when I was in law school. But if you slow down, basahin nyo lang per sentence kung nahihirapan kayo. Digest it. Alright? Doon nyo maintindihan yung case itself. Okay, so take a look at this. The antecedents of the case are not complicated. Private respondent. Again, sino yung private respondent class, ha? Si Marilu Gonzalez. Alright? Without the assistance of counsel, filed the aforesaid trial court a complaint for damages against the petitioner for their alleged violation of their agreement to get married. So, ito pa lang. Ito yung this is the meat of what happened. Merong violation of their agreement to get married. Therefore, si Ms. Gonzalez filed a complaint for damages against the petitioner. Alright. So, alam na natin kung anong nangyari. Kung anong final. Okay? But, let us know what happened in real life or IRL, di ba? Alright? So, she stated in her complaint, 22 years old, single, Filipino, pretty lass of good moral character, respected in her community. On the other hand, Iranian citizen, Lozano's apartments, Dagupan, exchange student taking a medical course. Alright? So basahin niyo lang. The latter courted and proposed to marry her. She accepted his love on the condition that they get married. Petitioner then visited the private respondent's parents in Pangasinan to secure their approval for marriage. So, this is a story. Huwag niyong isipin na it's overwhelming, it's a Supreme Court case. Hindi ganun. Imagine it as it happens in real life. Nangyari to, totoong tao tong mga to, class. Probably buhay pa tong mga to. Okay? Merong magnobyo, 22 years old, and the other person, Iranian citizen, transferee or exchange student. Pumunta yung exchange student sa bahay ng babae, ng Pinay, to secure their approval for marriage. Alright. August 20. Sometime in August 1987, the petitioner, si Gashem Shukat, forced her to live in the Lozano apartments. Okay. Essentially, hindi pala ganun. The intentions of this person is not as pure. Why is that? A week before filing the complaint, petitioner's attitude towards her started to change. Maltreatment, threatened to kill her, and the result of such maltreatment, she sustained injuries. Okay, take a look at this. Pansin niyo to, itong hina-highlight ko. Petitioner repudiated their marriage agreement and asked her not to live with him anymore. Few notes on this. Number one, you might encounter words like this, repudiated. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Ako, when I was starting in law school, I don't know that word. So if you encounter an unfamiliar word, directly, Google mo. Repudiated. Parang he went back. Binaliktad yung marriage agreement. Okay. Take a look at this sentence and remember what we've discussed. Sa first, diba? For alleged violation of their agreement to get married. So, stuff is happening in real life. Binaliktad siya, nagligawan sila, pumunta sa parents, nagligawan, nag-live in together, pero binaliktad siya. Okay. A day before the filing the complaint, nagpunta sila sa barangay captain. Okay? Ngayon, on October 27, ito medyo style of writing na to ng Supreme Court Justice na to, si Justice Davide. Hindi pa siya Chief Justice na. Medyo hindi siya super chronological. Okay? Filed a case for damages. Alright? So, ang prinay niya, look at my highlights, pray for judgment to pay damages not less than 45,000, actual expenses, attorney's fees. Alright. Now, anong important dito? So, you know the facts as alleged by the complainant. Sa simula, sa baba pa lang, sa regional trial court. Okay? Now, as far as digests are concerned, it's my personal style to not go into the minute details of stating what is written in the answer, unless, of course, it's material. Okay, class? But, sabihin mo lang na, for example, in the answer, the respondent or the petitioner denied the statements. Okay? But, of course, you want to read this. You might want to read this. But as far as you learning what happened in the case, just skim and scan through this part. Okay? So, alam na natin, nagbarangay, and then nag-file ng complaint. So when you file a complaint, the other party would have to file an answer. This is a bit civil procedure na, court procedures na to. Pero I'm just guiding you through the chronological process. After filing the answer, the court would order pre-trial. Okay? After pre-trial, this is just class, skimming and scanning. Alright? Trial on the merits, the lower court rendered a decision favoring the private respondent. So what does that mean? Sino yung private respondent? Si Gonzales, di ba? You can see that. Private respondent is Marilu T. Gonzales. So, at the RTC level, nanalo si private respondent. The petitioner, Gashem Shukat Baksh, was ordered to pay damages and attorney's fees. Okay. Now, so these are facts. Okay. But more often than not, the Supreme Court would discuss what is the basis of the decision. Kita nyo, class? May decision ang korte, ang RTC, but you don't know why is the decision like that. So the Supreme Court would of course tell you. Alright. So the decision is anchored on the findings of the trial court. So makita niyo yan. Basahin niyo na lang. A to G. The trial court gave full credit to Gonzalez's private testimony because inter alia, ano ibig sabihin ng inter alia? Google nyo. But inter alia means, among others, she would not have the temerity and courage to come to court to expose her honor and reputation to public scrutiny and ridicule if her claim was false. Okay. Here, the court would sometimes point out the evidence submitted at the RTC. But if you're making a digest, it's up to you to kumbaga cherry pick what are the material things that you want to tell yourself, your blockmates if you're sharing your digest, or your teacher if you're submitting a digest. And why is that? Kasi hindi mo pwedeng isulat ito lahat, class. If you put this in the Word document, nag-digest ka pa. Diba? So, it's your discretion. It's up to you to write the flow of the digest. Alright. So, ano yun? So, makita mo, in the early days of October, defendant would tie plaintiff's hands and feet while he went to school and even gave her medicine at 4 in the morning that made her sleep the whole day and whole night. Became pregnant, the defendant gave her some medicine to abort the fetus. So, ang daming nangyari. If you would see, class, itong mga narration na to, it's not part of the narrations in the complaint. Kumbaga, ito na yung details to support the factual conclusions stated in this whole chunk. Okay? Next. So we know the details of the evidence. We know the decision of the regional trial court. And what did I tell you? If in litigation, in court, someone always wins, someone always loses. Alright. So before you move forward, minsan malilito kayo, class. Bakit may plaintiff bigla dito? Bakit may defendant? When the people that we call is petitioner and private respondent. Bakit ganun? Bakit nag-iiba, attorney? Simple answer. Because at the Supreme Court level, you call them petitioner, respondent. But at the trial court level, we call them the plaintiff ang naghabla or the defendant ang kinasuhan. So, if you take a look at this, digest the findings and conclusions were detailed by the respondent court. Sino yung respondent court? This is the Court of Appeals. Okay? Don't be lost, class, ha? Kumbaga, kino-quote lang ito from the RTC. Okay? So, papalit-palit lang. The plaintiff would become the respondent or the petitioner when it's appealed to a higher tribunal. All right. So, as we know, Gashem Shukat Baksh lost at the RTC. So, as a petitioner, he appealed the trial court to the CA. Right? And the Supreme Court would tell you that the respondent court, or the CA, affirmed in toto the trial rulings of October 16. Ano ibig sabihin ng in toto? Again, Google nyo, but for now, it means everything. affirmed everything. So the CA basically told the Gashem Shukat Baksh when he appealed to the CA, your petition is completely wrong and whatever the RTC stated, tama lahat yun. Okay. So, the Supreme Court level, the Supreme Court case would more or less state the reasoning behind why the Court of Appeals concluded that way. So, basahin niyo yan. Okay? Because of this defeat, so natalo si Gashem Shukat Baksh sa Court of Appeals. So, before you go to the Supreme Court, syempre, aakyat ka sa tribunals, di ba, class? After the decision of the Court of Appeals, if you lost at the CA, your only recourse, your only action, the only tribunal left is the Supreme Court or the SC. So, the petitioner filed the instant petition. Okay? Medyo weird ang language ng batas, ano, class? The instant petition. But hindi na lang current. Pero that's legalese. That's our language. It's the language of the court. You would learn how to write or speak or read this as you go along to get more experience. But yeah, just bear with this. Well, don't beat yourself up too much. Parang ba't ang gulo? Okay. So, nag-file na sa Supreme Court. Okay. So, when you're writing your case digest, more or less, patapos ka na if you're at the part of the Supreme Court. So, the petitioner filed the instant case at the Supreme Court alleging the following things, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, you go to the issue. Alright? So, at this point, it is up to you on what to write. On how to write it. How to make your case digest flow. Alright. So, of course, makikita mo yung arguments ng petitioner dito. And the Supreme Court would tell you that. He's Iranian Muslim, he's not familiar with Catholic and Christian ways. The subsequent failure to fulfill the same is excusable and tolerable because of his Muslim upbringing. He alludes to the Muslim code and maraming reasons. These are his arguments. Okay? So at the Supreme Court, the private respondent filed her complaint to the petitioner, and then the petitioner filed his reply. So this is civil procedure. So because our topic is obligations and contracts, wag na kayo mag-delve into the procedural aspect. Na, okay, ito yung final niya. Ito yung sinabi niya sa reply, ito yung sinabi sa comment. So just go into the meat of the discussion. Okay. Here, you would see that the Supreme Court, papunta na tayo sa conclusion na matatalo si Gashem Shukat Baksh. Petitioner has miserably failed to convince us that both the appellate and the trial courts have overlooked any facts and substance. Alright. So, mahaba ang case, class. I've told you all that maraming issue. The court resolves many issues in a single case. Hindi lang yan whether or not there is damages. Marami. So, kung syempre, of course, kung anong topic nyo, then that's your digest. Your digest should be about that. Okay? The digest should not be what are the exceptions for a petition for review on certiorari. Hindi yun. The digest should be for damages because it's probably what you're talking about, your subject matter for that specific date. And now to the legal issue. So actually, the SC feeds you this. It's just up for you to cherry pick, as I've told you. The existing rule that the breach of promise to marry per se is not an actionable wrong. So, breach of promise per se, by itself, hindi siya actionable. Na parang, kung nag-promise ang boyfriend mo sa'yo, okay, pakakasalang kita. Pero, binaliktad ka niya. By that alone, hindi ka automatically mananalo for damages. Yan ang sinabi ng Supreme Court. Okay? But, kaya lang, because of Article 21 of the Civil Code, Okay, this is beyond our beyond our coverage na. But just for just read the Article 21. Um, because of the untold number of moral wrongs which is impossible for human foresight to specifically enumerate. Ang ibig sabihin nito, class, ang mga senador natin dati, when they were drafting the new civil code, di naman nila sasabihin na, di nila ina-enumerate na, okay, ganito, if you breach your promise, you're liable. If you kick your dog, your neighbor's dog, you're liable. No. So what they did was, they made Article 21, all right, to actually impose the liability on those who, in essence, are not treating their other fellow men fairly. All right. So, ayan, merong quasi-delict. All right. So we scroll down further. I apologize. I might be going too fast because this is just my way of reading Supreme Court cases, as because of my current profession. But read the Supreme Court case in whole. Okay. Because of Article 21, dito na, makikita mo na. 'Di ba sinabi ng Supreme Court that breach of promise per se is not actionable. But because if the promise to marry, okay, became the proximate cause of giving herself unto him in sexual congress when in reality he had no intention of marrying her, or if the promise was just to seduce her, okay, then such injury has been committed contrary to morals, good customs, and public policy. Okay. Makikita nyo, class. These are good parts to put in your digest. Plaintiff made her surrender her virtue. Alright? And it was likewise these fraud and deception that plaintiff's parents, plaintiff, which is Gonzalez, agreed to their daughters living in with him in preparatory to the subsequent marriage. Let's go further. Okay? Marami. The Supreme Court would also quote other Supreme Court cases. Hermosissima versus Court of Appeals, Tanhanko versus Court of Appeals. Sometimes it's good to write this if it fits all fours with the current case that you're digesting. It's up to you. Our Supreme Court actually quotes American cases. Alright? So, haba, di ba? Ito. It is clear that he harbors a condescending, if not sarcastic, regard for private respondent on the account of her ignoble birth, inferior educational background, poverty, and, as perceived by him, dishonorable employment. So there's a mockery of our laws. So in these things, you put this at the reasoning part of your case studies, or the ratio decidendi. So good things to put there are, number one, provisions of law. Kung bakit na-deny or na-grant yung petition. So, magandang i-establish mo beforehand, you establish what is Article 21 of the Civil Code. Okay? Next is, of course, Article 2176. So, with those in mind, kung yung mga legal basis mo, you have to put out the facts which support the legal conclusion. All right? Marrying a woman with circumstances under so circumstances could not have even remotely occurred to him. His profession of love to Mary were empty words to deceive the poor woman into believing that he loved her. Okay? Ito, the pari delicto rule. Siguro hindi na part ito. So, as I've told you, hindi naman lahat ilalagay mo sa digest. So, wag nyo na lang ilagay yan. If I were you. So, there it is. Oh, so I apologize. Let's take 5 steps back. The issue is not written completely here. Issue. Okay? So, maganda, Command F kayo or Control F. Hanapin yung issue. Yan, nakikita nyo. He raises therein the single issue of whether or not Article 21 of the Civil Code applies to the case at bar. So that's the issue. That's the thing you put in your digest. Alright, so those are quick tips and tricks in reading a case. So, it gets tiring. Nakakapagod to read a case, I'll be honest. But once you develop the skill for it, once you develop the capacity to look for the specific words, specific paragraphs, it's easy. And you understand the case easier when you know what to look for. So I hope this helps you, class. Send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.